Welcome to Air Discussion. Today I will tell you the story of John Smith. He was heading on a holiday in Las Palmas. His family lived in Europe. He boarded flight PA 1736, his first flight on the 747, and his first flight on the glorious Pan Am. And he was looking forward to it. PA was the best airline in the world, and travelling with them was synonymous with absolute luxury and utmost comfort. They had operated the first 747 flight 7 years prior to this between New York and London. Little does John know he will be on the exact aircraft that operated that historic flight. John was travelling in economy. Nothing exciting. Well, not in the 70s. You see, it wasn't all about sitting next to 3 people for a very long flight. His experience was a lot different. As he entered the gigantic wide body, the first thing that struck him was the beautiful lounge in front of the Clipper class. And he slowly made his way to his seat 34K, right in front of the wing. The cabin in Clipper class consisted of many red and blue seats, typical of Pan American World Airways. John was mesmerized. There truly wasn't anything like this. The view out of his window was onto the wings, and they seemed huge. They seemed as though they never ended. Just as he was distracted, the cabin crew came towards him and offered him his welcome drink, champagne. Yes, travel has changed a lot since then. After around 20 minutes, the doors were closed and the aircraft made its way to the runway, bound for the Canaries. Everything was calm and John was relaxing in his seat, getting ready for the 7.5-hour flight to Las Palmas. After around an hour, the crew came back and served the starters to the evening meal. Yes, each passenger, even those in coach, were treated to a 3-course meal. The starter today was a green salad with balsamic oil and some pancetta. And John was very impressed. The starter was flavoursome. Soon another smell caught his eye, and that was the meal that was being prepared. A fried paella served with a glass of Rioja, so the guests could taste what was awaiting them at their final destination. The meal itself lasted around an hour, with as much wine as you could possibly drink, and after that, the cabin crew took all the trays and dimmed the lights for people to sleep, because the flight itself was an evening flight. John couldn't sleep. He was hypnotized by the dance of the navigation lights, flashing on and off intermittently. Eventually though, he dozed off and slept for around 5 hours. Passengers slowly woke up. So did John, and they reached the coast of Ireland. Breakfast was being prepared in the upper deck lounge, and John made his way there. As he stood up and walked along the aisle towards the stairs, he could already smell the freshness of coffee and the croissants that were waiting him, and he went up. As he reached the top of the stairs, he was welcomed by the barista sitting behind his coffee machine and showed to the lounge, where he sat on a comfortable blue sofa overlooking the windows and the sunrise over the coast of Ireland. He ate a croissant and had some cappuccino, and he thought to himself, wow, this was just like in a hotel, except I am 35,000 feet above the sky. Just as he was daydreaming about his sunshine holiday, an announcement was made on the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I hope you're having a wonderful time with us here. We have just heard of the situation at Las Palmas airport, and this is forcing us to divert to an airport nearby. This will happen in about 2 hours, so you still have a bit of time to enjoy the lounge and have a lovely breakfast. We will see you on the ground and give you more updates just as we will start the approach towards the diversion airport, which is roughly an hour away from Las Palmas. The weather there is slightly cloudy, with a little bit of fog, but nothing too major. You should probably enjoy the beautiful views of Brown Landing. It should be clear enough, and that's it from the flight deck. We'll see you on the ground. Despite the worrying nature of some event that is stopping them from reaching the final destination for now, John wasn't too fussed. He knew that he was in good hands and had a bit more time to enjoy the experience with Pan Am. He finished his coffee and made his way to the front of the lounge to play something which was an exclusive on Pan Am. With fellow passengers, he played pool for around an hour, and he won 3 games. There is a reason for that. He's a former snooker player and one of the champions in his state. He truly enjoyed it. He thought, it's very rare that on aircrafts like this, I'm able to do this. Overall, he was very surprised with the luxury of the 747 and the service offered in Pan Am. After winning his 4th game and wishing farewell to his fellow passengers, he went back to his seat, where the rest of the entertainment was waiting for him. The rests of breakfast were distributed throughout the cabin, with a final round of coffee before passengers were readied for landing. The cabin crew came back and checked that everyone had their seatbelt fastened, the tray tables stalled, window blinds open, and seat in the upright position. Something which is completely normal, and John appreciated. He finds it fun when travelling. Both in the upper and lower deck, both on the seats and in the lounge, some lovely jazz music was playing. And for those who were interested, headphones were distributed. It was time for the pre-landing movie projection. And nothing was more luxurious, more pompous than Casablanca. And it turns out, this was also John's favourite movie. Times were a lot different back then, and the movie was playing well into final descent. Only a few seconds before landing was it cut. A perfect way to end a flight, thought John. And the plane taxied to one of the stands. The pilot came back on the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tenerife North, welcome to Los Rodeos Airport. This isn't our final destination. There has been some kind of an explosion at Las Palmas, so we'll have to wait here until everything clears. You won't be allowed to leave the aircraft due to immigration formalities, but our wonderful crew will take care of you. We will project another movie and serve some refreshments and some breakfast for those who want. That's it from me and the captain. I hope everything's fine. I hope you had a fantastic flight, and we should be on the way in about 2 hours. Thank you for choosing Pan Am again. Outside, the fog was thickening more and more and more. But that didn't bother John. He went for another cappuccino and had a second breakfast because he thought, why not? I'm on holiday. Everything was fine for about 2 hours, and the cabin crew were keeping people entertained. The movies were playing. In that case, it was some Charlie Chaplin movies, keeping it retro. Everyone was having a wonderful time, and suddenly the movie stopped and the engines revved up. It was time to leave. The aircraft made its way towards the runway. In the background noise of the cabin, you could hear the JT-9Ds, the aircraft's 4 very powerful engines, slowly coming back to life and being brought to idle speed, then taxi speed, and the aircraft turned. All of a sudden, an enormous noise, huge rumbling, followed by intense screeching and scorching heat took over the whole cabin. The section where John was sitting detaches from the airframe and comes flying a few dozen feet before coming to a sudden halt in the grass. The section was ejected with such strength that John lost consciousness, only waking up a few moments later, face down on the grass, hundreds of feet away from his seat. He looks around and could hear people crying, people shouting, people running, and all of a sudden, nothing but silence. He blacked out as he lost consciousness again, only waking up what feels like an eternity later but was only 15 minutes later, in a hangar surrounded by medical professionals. He had no idea what happened, but he was only lightly affected, and his loss of consciousness was only vagal, so he could walk home. John decides to see his family, and they tell him that, based on the news reports on the local television, he has just survived the most terrible accident in aviation history. His plane collided with a KLM operating flight KLM 4805. John Smith was a fictional character. Any similarities with real life were simply coincidental. This podcast is in loving memory of the 583 people who sadly passed away in the Tenerife air disaster. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned about aviation history, and I will see you next time for a similar format. Have a lovely weekend.